Good evening, everyone. Welcome to OACAC's Virtual College Exploration. Tonight we have three panelists to talk about public and private institutions with you. Just want to go over a couple of housekeeping items. So you can ask questions. The chat feature will not be activated. Your camera and microphone will be off for the entirety of this session. But to ask questions, you can utilize the Q&A button to type your questions to the presenters at any time. If we do not get to your question during this session, we will get a list of those questions and we'll hopefully get an answer to you as soon as possible. We do encourage you to look through the list of sessions that are being offered throughout this month and into October and sign up for more that fit your interest. And then last but not least, this session will be recorded. So if you feel like you need to go back, you heard something really interesting from one of the panelists, feel free to rewatch that, share with others, so that will be sent to you after this session. So without further ado, I will stop sharing this slide and let our panelists share their expertise with you all.
Hi, everyone. We are here to talk to you today about private and public colleges, different points and perspectives. My name is Erin Miller. I'm an admissions rep and the coordinator for out-of-state recruitment for Alma College.
I'm Lindsay Hansen. I'm an assistant director of admissions at Aquinas College in Grand Rapids, Michigan.
And I'm Travis T. Kelly. I'm assistant director of admission at Albion College in Albion, Michigan.
So you'll notice that we are all, well, you may not know this, but we are all private institutions. And so the difference between private institutions and public institutions essentially comes down to their funding and where their funding comes from. So public institutions, which we'll go over some that may be more familiar to you, come from state funding, which means that the government will be paying a large portion of money to help support your education, whereas private institutions, the funding comes primarily from donations or donors, maybe alumni, or also your tuition. Some private colleges that you may be more familiar with are Baldwin-Wallace, Kenyon, Wittenberg, Oberlin College, Capital, Worcester, and Heidelberg. Something that's a little different about private colleges versus public colleges is you'll see a lot smaller populations there. So that means a lot smaller class sizes. This allows you to have a lot more individualized attention with your faculty members. You can really build a much more like a deeper connection with your faculty members through the smaller class sizes. And there's a lot more hands-on learning, and there's usually a higher chance that you will be able to do research at your institutions, or a lot of outside of the classroom, or what we call experiential learning opportunities as well. Some myths that come with private colleges are that because some of the funding, or part of the funding, comes from your tuition, it's super expensive and that only the rich kids can attend there. That is not true. As private colleges, we see a lot more students coming from middle class or lower middle class schools, or backgrounds, excuse me. And so that's something to keep in mind. There's a lot that we do, and Travis is going to break it down later in the session, but he's going to break down how the funding actually plays out and where your federal aid kind of kicks in. So it's not just the rich kids when it comes down to the cost of attendance. Some other myths are that there are challenging admissions requirements. That is not always true. They may be more difficult to get into. They may have higher requirements, but they're much more inclusive, and especially right now with test optional, a huge process that most of us are going through. So it's not as challenging as it may seem. It's not as exclusive as it may seem. And then the last one is that there's a lack of what we call real college experience. And that's typically what you see on movies and TV shows primarily. And so that is also not true. So it's still college. It's still that real college experience that you have. It's just at a much smaller group size and a lot more intensive for you specifically.
And I'm going to talk a little bit about public colleges. You know, obviously we have some bigger names on here. Kent State, Ohio State might be a very popular one we're all familiar with. Toledo, those, you know, Miami of Ohio, all of those different things. But then we do have, there you go, sorry. So, you know, with public colleges, right, we are going to typically see kind of those larger classroom sizes, just kind of larger campuses in general, as well, that big school atmosphere. So public colleges definitely are going to be a lot bigger, bigger classroom sizes, like I mentioned too. But then you're gonna, I always tell this to my students, you got to think about the atmosphere you want in the classroom and outside of the classroom, right? Campus life and everything that's going on there. Is it going to, you know, campus size is really important. So also with public colleges, lots of alumni, because those colleges are going to be inherently bigger, and there's going to be a lot more of the alumni base that you're going to see with bigger schools. There you go. There, thank you. And then just some myths about public colleges as well, or public, you know, public universities, because we want to show both sides of that coin, right? With public colleges, public universities, I think there's kind of the no rules, party all day, every day. That is not the case. We know that's not the case. School is school. You're there to learn. You're there to get an education, and you're going to get that at a public school, of course. Easy admission requirements are also kind of a public college, public university myth, that anybody can get in, and we know that's not true either. That's going to have, it may have difficult admission requirements, or especially with more schools moving to test optional, maybe public universities who only required tests and transcripts are now going to require essays or letters of recommendation, or maybe more of those things. They've already required those, so you're going to have more of those things. Not challenging courses. I think that is kind of a big public university myth. Again, school is school. You're going to be taking some pretty intense courses, especially when you get into your major related courses. That's going to be the same at public colleges or private colleges. You're going to have kind of the same level, of course, with those college courses.
All right, awesome. So now we're going to talk a little bit about the financial aid and affordability when it comes to the differences between public and private colleges, which I think for all three of us on this panel here, I think it's you know, kind of a big important issue for us working at private schools, because you know, at the end of the day, we're kind of competing a little bit with the public schools, and they have sticker prices. When you look online and you look at the prices of colleges, you're looking at kind of the sticker price, and the sticker price for a private school sometimes is, you know, less than half of what a private school might be. So sometimes I think Aaron and Lindsay probably have the same issue, where some students will not even bother looking at a school like the three schools that we work at, because the sticker price looks so high. So I'm gonna try to help you guys understand a little bit the differences and how both public and private schools actually come up with their final bottom line cost that you end up paying, which I can say pretty confidently is most private schools, definitely I would say the three that we work at, nobody is paying the sticker price at the private school. So I don't think that we at Albion, where I work, have any students paying the full sticker price. So I'll talk about that and how we kind of get to that. So there's a couple terms that are really important. You can see on the screen there, you've got merit-based scholarships, activity-based scholarships, grants, FAFSA, EFC. I know these are things that some people might know a little bit about. Obviously, you know the word scholarship, you probably know the word grant, but they're really important in kind of the timeline and the process of getting down to your final cost. So kind of a lot of times when I talk to students, I kind of do it in more of a timeline. So I'll show you kind of how we end up getting to the final cost. So coming up here in a few weeks would be October 1st. That's when the FAFSA is going to open up. So that's the free application for federal student aid. This is an application you can go right online to fafsa.gov. It's a government program. It's not any of the schools program. It's not Albion's program. It's not Aquinas. It's not Alma. It's not Ohio State, any of those other schools that we mentioned. They're not the ones putting out the FAFSA. It's the government. So you fill out your family's income levels. Sometimes it can be a little bit invasive, but it's trying to help you out. So it's asking you to use your taxes, and you fill out kind of your family's income level. If you made any money, you'll put in your income from the year that it's asking for. And then basically it goes through an algorithm, and then it spits out a number that's your EFC. That's your expected or estimated family contribution. So that's really the number that's important here. Is that's basically saying, based on all of the money that you said that you have available, or that you said that you made on your FAFSA, or that your family has made on your FAFSA, goes through the algorithm, and the EFC, that's telling us how much money your family has available to pay for school for that next school year. So our sticker price, at Albion, our sticker price is almost $60,000, which is very high. But your EFC, that number might be $10,000. So we're not going to make you pay $60,000. We're going to get our price closer to the $10,000 mark. Every school is doing that same sort of a thing. The other things that we've got there are the merit scholarships, the grants. You might get some grants through the FAFSA. You might get some government grant scholarships through the FAFSA. You got things you may have heard of, Pell Grant. In Michigan, we have a thing called the Michigan Tuition Grant. Some different things like that. But you've also got merit scholarships. A lot of private schools are going to give out, or probably most private schools are going to be giving out merit scholarships. For the institution that I work at, any student that applies and gets accepted to Albion is going to get some sort of a merit scholarship. And actually our lowest one is $23,000. And so we're giving out some pretty big merit scholarships. So that's automatically a big reason to not be too afraid of that sticker price that's really high, because they're already dropping off $23,000 to every student. Plus, we have 5 levels up to $34,000. So you can get more than half of your cost taken care of just through applying and us looking at your grades and your merit and giving you that merit scholarship. There are activity scholarships, such as some schools, if you're not a Division III school like us, they could give out athletic scholarships. But even Division III schools, we can give out scholarships for fine arts types of things if you're in a band, or different things like that. And I mentioned the grants are going to be things that are available through the FAFSA or through the institution. Or one thing that's not mentioned here is you can get scholarships at outside places also. I always recommend looking in your local area. You can log in online and type in scholarships, and you'll find all these big national websites and stuff with these huge scholarships and stuff. And I'm not telling you that you shouldn't do that and that you can't earn those scholarships, but there's a good chance, that other people are going to end up with those really big scholarships. So my recommendation is always to look in your hometown, look around, look at the school, look at the Chamber of Commerce, look at the local credit union, look at all those sorts of places, because those are the places that I see students getting scholarships outside of the institution and the government the most. So kind of look in those places. You can see that chart there showing that students at private schools are getting more financial aid by a pretty wide margin, more than the public or the for-profit schools. So that's partly because, right off the bat, these merit scholarships are giving you a ton of assistance, kind of bringing you back down to that same level of a public institution. So so those are the kind of ways. We'll flip over to this next slide here. And I have kind of a little chart. This is, I like to be clear that this is a family basically that has filled out the FAFSA, and their EFC is $10,000. So you will each fill out the EFC, and your EFC, or you'll fill out the FAFSA, your EFC will be different than $10,000 probably. It may be higher, might be lower. I can't say, it depends on your family income level, but just for the purposes of this, I chose $10,000, and I put private school sticker price and public school sticker price, just kind of guessing kind of an average of what some of them might be. So you can see it's more than double. The private school is more than double what the public school price is. But each of us are using the same ways to get your price down towards that EFC. So you've got scholarships. It's really big on the private school side because we're giving those merit scholarships. Like I said, you can look for those outside scholarships also. There's lots of different ways to get those scholarships, but for us, you know, that merit one is always going to be big because the private schools are pretty much all giving merit scholarships to almost every student. On the public school side, that might be smaller. They may give you one, they may not. It just depends on the school and depends on who you are and depends on if you have found a local scholarship or anything like that. But that's going to be part of it. If you filled out the FAFSA and your EFC is $10,000, there's a good chance you're going to get some sort of a grant, maybe like a Pell Grant or maybe, you know, something like that. Your EFC might be need to be a tiny bit lower if you want a Pell Grant, but there's different grants that you may receive through the government. So that's going to be, you'll get that same one probably for both schools. And then the last thing is loans. I know people don't like to hear the word loan. They don't like the idea of taking out loans for 4 years and then having to pay it back. I know that's not really an exciting thing for me either, but it's a part of college. It's a part of putting value in your education. I always talk to students about, you know, you buy a house, you buy a car, you plan on having a payment for those sorts of things. And education to me is just as important as those things. So I'm not saying that every single student has to take out a loan, but there's always going to be talk of that. There's always going to be included in your financial aid package. The federal student loans for the first year, it's almost always, when you fill out the FAFSA, you're almost always going to be offered $5,500 in student loans. So that's going to be for both public and private schools. You can accept that full $5,500. You can accept none of it. You can accept part of it. That's completely up to you, but that's going to be factored into your financial aid at pretty much every school that you look at. And that happens for almost everybody. Most EFCs, no matter if it's high or low, are going to be offered that $5,500 in student loans. So you can see there that once you go through that whole process, both schools, even though the private school is more than double the cost of the public school, that the final cost is right there at the same level. So that's going to be the case. You can look at all of those schools that we mentioned there on those first couple pages that the logos were on. Almost all of those schools are going to be within a couple $1,000s of each other at the end of the day, even though they've all had wide-ranging sticker prices. So keep that in mind. Don't let that sticker price scare you away from any school. I can't promise everybody that you're going to go through this entire process and then your final cost is going to be, you know, this amazing number at the end of the day, but it might be. So you're not going to know unless you go through this entire process. So make sure that you don't let that scare you away. Like I said, at the end of the day, if the price ends up being too high, then it's too high, but you're not going to know what your price is until you go through this process. And I promise you, it's going to be probably, especially at a private school, it's going to be lower than you think it is right now. So yeah, so just trust that process, go through it. If you have questions, reach out to your admission counselors or your financial aid departments. They're going to be able to go through this same sort of process with you and answer all your questions.
I think it's worth mentioning too, there are some, you know, private schools, public schools that with scholarships or anything like that, your application for admission is also your application for merit-based awards. And then there are some schools that your application for admission is just for admission, and then you need to fill out an application for merit-based awards. So again, like Travis said, talking to your admissions counselor, making sure that you're not missing any deadlines or anything like that is going to be really, really important. So, you know, of course, we are 3 Michigan schools talking to all of you guys in Ohio. So we wanted to really touch on going out of state and why maybe consider going out of state for school. You know, typically, you know, when we think of out of state schools, we think of out of state tuition costs. And being 3 private schools that are out of state, private institutions typically do not have a different out of state tuition price. Our sticker price, like Travis said, right? Because we're going to call it the sticker price. Our sticker price is going to be the same for in-state, out-of-state. It does not matter. Private institutions, like I said, typically do not have an out-of-state tuition cost, whereas public schools, public institutions do typically have out-of-state tuition costs, or like I said, potentially there may be some out-of-state public schools that do not have a different out-of-state tuition cost for sure. There may even be some incentives for staying in that state. So for example, Michigan State University does have an incentive where if you're an out-of-state student that is going to MSU, if you get, graduate and then get a job in Michigan for, a number of years, I think it's around 2 or 3 years. If you stay in Michigan, have a job there, they will reimburse whatever the difference is between their out-of-state and in-state tuition price is. So some public schools, like I said, Michigan State, are going to have some of those incentives. So again, just another kind of great thing of considering out of state and looking out of state, that there could be some schools that have incentives like that. Some schools could also have out of state scholarships, right? You could have, because schools are considering your travel costs, it is going to be a little bit more expensive for you to go home maybe on those holiday breaks. They want to help with that with out of state scholarships. So when going out of state, right, because we're just looking at schools right now, I'm guessing maybe we're prospective students starting this whole college process. When going out of state or looking at potentially visiting out of state schools, check with those schools for travel reimbursement programs too. I can say, I believe all three of us, have out of state travel reimbursement programs. So, at Aquinas, we will reimburse up to $400 of what your transportation costs are. So if you're flying, or we'll reimburse your flight, we'll reimburse your gas, we'll reimburse your bus ticket, train ticket. We'll be able to do that, if you visit for the first time or an admitted student. There may be some caveats to those, but there will be schools that have those travel reimbursement programs. So again, just a lot of different benefits of going out of state and expanding your reach a little bit in this whole college process. And I think Travis hit the nail on the head. This is school and college is an investment in your future. That's why we do want to, as 3 private institutions, want to make sure you guys know that yes, we do have higher sticker prices, but we do end up getting pretty comparable to what a public institution ends up being. We want to make sure that you know that you aren't going to know the true and out-of-pocket costs, I think, at any school you're looking at until you fill out that FAFSA and then are able to compare and contrast those different financial aid awards that you're going to get from each of those schools. So, with private institutions, private college graduates finish on time, right? Finding this with, 59% of graduates of smaller private colleges finish within 4 years, whereas, 38% of regional public universities finish within 4 years. So private schools, we never want you to rule out a private school because of cost or anything like that, and that's why we wanted to talk a little bit about those myths as well, to kind of make sure that you realize that there's a lot of options outside of our public institutions, outside of our Ohio schools as well, and because this is an important decision, and I don't think I can stress enough too that your admissions counselors are people you can talk to about pretty much anything. We are here for any little question, and no question is too big or too small. We'll figure it out. That goes for, I believe, public-private institutions. Private institutions end up being a little bit smaller. Our pool's a little bit smaller. We're able to give some really great one-on-one connections, and we're able to really help in any way that we can. Your admissions counselors are huge resources of information because we do realize this is a very important decision to make. But again, like Travis said, it's an investment in your future too. You're muted, Erin.
No.
Oh, there you go.
So we have shared a little bit between the difference between private schools and public schools. And we realize that we are, yes, admissions counselors. And so we are not students. And so we have actually have 2 students who are, one is from in-state and then one is from out of state. Both are students at Alma College, so private college, to kind of share with you why they chose to attend a private college.
Hi everyone, my name is Lene and I am a junior at Alma College located in Michigan. I am majoring in psychology and minoring in biology and involved in the Alma Symphony Orchestra. I'm originally from Muskegon, Michigan, but I chose to go to Alma College because of the family aspect of Alma. Everyone treats each other like family here ever since my first time on campus in 2018. Everyone has been so nice and welcoming to me. My favorite part of being in Alma Scott is that I've had the opportunity to get to know my professors with small classes, and this is very crucial when in college. It's so beneficial to know that I'm able to meet one-on-one with my professors. Creating that friendship with my professors just makes class more engaging and fun. So yeah, that's just a little inside scoop of my Alma experience. My very best wishes are with all of you in your decision-making process.
So it's really awesome to hear kind of Lene's experience. She hit on probably, I think, one of my favorite, if not all of our favorite aspects, is that really close connection with faculty members. So next we have Molly, and she is our out-of-state student. She is from Indiana, and so she shares a little bit about why she chose to come to Alma from Indiana.
Hi guys, my name is Molly. I'm a senior here at Alma. I'm double majoring in history and political science. I'm also involved with Greek life here on campus, and I'm a member of our award-winning Model United Nations team. I'm originally from New Carlisle, Indiana, but I consider myself a part-time Michigander. When I was looking for schools, I was convinced I wanted to go to a big school out of state, but I was amazed when I toured Alma at how many opportunities a small school had for me. All the resources for students were extremely accessible, and all the professors seemed genuinely invested in my success. My favorite part of being a Scot, though, is all the opportunities Alma offers me off campus, whether it's working at a refugee camp in Kenya, interning at a nonprofit in Washington, or competing with our Model United Nations team in New York. Alma has truly let me do it all. We wish you the best of luck in your search process, and we hope that you find out what Alma can do for you.
All right, so there was a little shameless plug in there. However, I think that Molly really spoke about another part of something that is often a myth, is because private schools are small, they don't have a lot to offer you as students, which is obviously not true from what Molly shared. She's been all over the world, has been able to be part of our Model UN program and really be involved throughout her time here. And she's really getting that quote unquote real world experience and real college experience. And so I encourage you all, as you're going through your college search process, to keep in mind that, you know, everything that you may see on TV or hear isn't always the true light of the college experience. And so it's important to do your own research and make sure that you're researching your different options, both private and public.
So we can take this time for a few questions. If you want to put them in the chat, we can answer them here. You know, I can personally say I'm an alum of Aquinas, and one of the myths of the private school that speaks to me a lot is, you know, not necessarily getting the college experience or anything like that, worried about going to a smaller school. I certainly remember thinking that when I was looking at schools, and I had narrowed down my search to Aquinas and to a public institution. And, you know, I had some friends who loved their big school experience, knew they wanted that, you know, they wanted something a little bit bigger. And I kind of figured out very quickly that I was very glad I chose a smaller school experience in terms of Aquinas, because I still felt like I got my college experience. I still was able to go to sporting events. I was a theater major, so I was able to do as all the shows that I ever could have wanted to do. Whereas, you know, some of my friends I did theater with in high school who went to bigger universities weren't able to get into plays till their junior, senior year. And I was getting into stuff freshman year. So I think that is another great thing, like Erin touched on and our students touched on, is that you still are able to really get involved in a lot of different things.
And I think I had a similar experience just with, like, when I was looking at colleges, I had narrowed down my search to Albion, whereas that's where I ended up going to school. It's where I work now, or a pretty big public school. And I had that public school. It was Michigan State. I might as well just say. I was thinking about Michigan State. I had grown up not far from East Lansing, where Michigan State's located, and I had just always planned on going there. And then when I actually started applying for schools, I was like, well, I should look at some other places. And obviously I ended up looking at Albion at one point and ended up changing my decision. And a big part of the drawback in my mind about maybe choosing a private school or a smaller school was that, I'm a big sports fan. I'm a big Michigan State sports fan. I was my whole life kind of interested in, being a part of the student sections at basketball games and football games and things like that. I think, or tailgating or whatever students are doing in those sorts of atmospheres. And, I think that that's pretty common. Students that I talk to are concerned about that same thing. Although, rationally, that doesn't seem to make a lot of sense if you look back. You're going to college for your education, and that doesn't have anything to do with your education, but it's still a big part of the experience. So as someone who chose the other route and went to a private school, I'll say that I was still able to go to those public schools and still be a part of those same atmospheres the times that I wanted to be. But then when I was taking classes, I was able to still be in Albion and take those small classes and raise my hand and have the professors, work with me. So I think that, it's hard to see before you're actually a college student, but it's pretty easy to have kind of both of those experiences and have the small classes, but also still be a part of the atmospheres that you want to be a part of. Plus, the private schools also still have some fun atmospheres and clubs and organizations and some really great things that you don't really think about or don't see, like Aaron mentioned. You don't see that on TV, you don't see that in movies. The small schools have some pretty cool things as well.
And I'm here to kind of shift everything around. So I attended I'll say medium-sized public school here in Michigan. Wanted to go to a big public school here in Michigan and chose the smaller of the two. And that is something that I think was a great decision for me. I have been blessed, I'll say, to work at a private school. I think that it has shown me a new light, and it really has allowed me to really see all sides of the higher education spectrum. So attended public school. It was great. It was a great experience. To be 100% honest, wish I would have kind of done more research. So I encourage everyone to do their research on what they want from their school and really go on campus visits, because that will definitely help you make your decision. Get to know people from your different institutions. I think if I would have had all of the information about private versus public schools, I think that maybe my decision might have been different, but I cannot say for sure. But I think that it's something to note that a lot of people are dissuaded by the cost, and it's not always going to be what you think it is. And the numbers that you see on the websites are not always the case. And you really have to go and experience the institution for itself, either on a virtual visit, a campus visit, however you can really get in contact with the school and their admissions reps or counselors is really the best way to do it. It's really up to whatever you're feeling, because this is your personal experience. I always tell my students, it's an investment, like Lindsay and Travis both said. It's an investment into you, it's an investment into your future, and it's a financial investment. And so it's something that it is a big decision, but it's going to be your decision. So it's something that you want to find your home where you feel most comfortable, and private versus public, that's your choice. And so, that's what your admissions counselors are there for, is to really help you find that place, and how their schools or our schools can really help you find that place.
If there aren't any questions, we can kind of wrap up. You can find us on all of our websites. All of our contact information is going to be right there for you to reach out. And yeah, we're just here to help.
Yeah, absolutely. Like Aaron just said, make sure you do your research into all these different things. Make sure that you're asking questions. Make sure that you're looking into the statistics and not just believing them for what they are at any school, including the schools that we work at. Make sure that you're asking the right questions and doing that due diligence for yourself so that you make the best decision. So, and then also just a plug again, like Lindsay mentioned before, just for your admission counselors. Just reach out to us. I give all the students that I work with, it's right on our website, and also my business card has my personal cell phone number. So if you want to reach out, text us, call us, email us, we're available for all of that. So make sure that you're getting all your questions answered. You don't have any excuse to not get those answers, because even the public schools have people just like us. Even though there's 40,000 people going there, they still have people just like us who can answer your questions.
All right, well, thank you so much to our panelists, Travis, Aaron, and Lindsay, for sharing your knowledge with us this evening. And thank you to those of you who attended this session. We do have a quick survey that we would like you to take. When this ends, you should see that survey. It's 4 questions. It should be very quick. It'll give us some beneficial information to see how we're doing with these virtual sessions. That way we can plan moving forward for more sessions for you all. And then also just another plug, if you would like to attend more sessions like this or about a particular institution, talking about that institution, you can look at those sessions and sign up at oacac.org. And then last but not least, as a reminder, this session was recorded and you can find that recording at oacac.org as well. Hope you all have a great evening. Thanks. Bye.